Thanks for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. We have plenty on our plate today, so let's get started with the day's highlights. Korea's laver or kim exports are booming despite falling outbound shipments due to the global economic slowdown. What's the secret? The country's household debt is growing like there's no end. And despite growing worries, the government says the rise has offered some help in economic recovery. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. China and Japan led Asian M&As into record territory last year, and their aggressive buying spree is showing no signs of slowing down. In contrast, though, Korea is looking rather passive in the foreign acquisition arena. Our Eunice Kim takes a look.
Already, headlines point to China's M&A ambitions. Last month, Haier Group moved to acquire General Electric's appliance arm, a 123-year-old U.S. business that counts Thomas Edison among its founders, for a handsome $5.4 billion. Also in January, China's cinema giant Wanda Group agreed to fork over $3.5 billion to buy the Hollywood production and finance company behind blockbusters such as Jurassic World, Godzilla, and The Dark Knight. Even before February was done, Chinese companies had snatched up $65 billion in overseas M&As, a record for so early in the year. And Japanese companies are no laggards either. They've announced $3.5 billion in M&A deals so far this year, including a $2.9 billion bid by Asahi Group Holdings for Italy's Peroni and the Netherlands' Grolsche beer brands. Unlike its regional rivals, Korean companies have been passive in cross-border deal-making, raking in less than $11 billion in transactions last year, compared to Japan's $70 billion and China's $95 billion. China's M&A appetite has been notably growing over the past 3 years, centered around securing advanced technologies to elevate its manufacturing sector past those of Korea and Japan. Japanese companies are buying up brands in the same industry to widen its market, preparing for deeper domestic stagnation weighed down by a shrinking population at home. Some experts say Korea has been less enthusiastic in overseas M&As, in part due to conglomerates' risk aversion, focusing instead on local purchases. They say if the country is to not be left in the dust by the world's second and third largest economies, the Korean government needs to push local companies to turn their eyes abroad and seek new growth opportunities, especially at a time when the country's core businesses continue to struggle. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Korean baby products are becoming more popular among the Chinese, even more so after China scrapped its one-child policy last year, allowing couples to have 2 children for the first time since the rules were first introduced 35 years ago. Our Park Se-young has this story.
This duty-free shop located in the heart of Seoul is packed with Chinese tourists trying to buy none other than baby products. Korean baby product companies have been seeing sales surge not only at these duty-free shops but also online, thanks to a growing preference among young Chinese parents for Korean goods. This trend started gaining traction after a tainted baby formula scandal shook China in 2008 and has left lingering fears about safety.
I used this product last year and it had great results, so I'm buying it again. I think Korean baby products are safer, especially since a lot of them have herbal ingredients.
This boom in Korean baby goods can also be attributed to the growing number of so-called smart moms in China who are willing to spend as much as it takes for the well-being of their children. In fact, smart moms have become the main target consumers for many Korean baby product companies. This is especially as their needs are expected to grow following the lifting of China's one-child policy last year after being introduced more than 3 decades ago to limit the country's explosive population growth. And now China's market for baby goods sold on and offline is forecast to reach $462 billion by 2018.
There's a growing number of consumers from Korea and overseas buying baby and childcare goods. Before, it used to be just a small portion of customers.
Chinese consumers have given Korean brands more hope as they struggle with a falling low birth rate and more parents are turning to foreign brands. Boryang Medians, a Korean baby care company, has been exporting its products to China since 2008, even establishing a local branch in 2013. Its sales of milk powder and baby laundry detergent have been steadily climbing. According to JD.com, China's second largest online food shopping mall, the number of Chinese consumers nabbing Korean snacks for children has also gone up over the years, as they're considered to be made under stricter safety regulations. Korean manufacturers are hopeful, as analysts say the fast-growing Chinese baby product market has the potential to expand further, even as China's economy slows. This, all on the back of burgeoning demand for safe and high-quality baby supplies. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Korea's laver, or dried seaweed kim, has emerged as the third most popular export in agricultural goods last year, particularly seeing high demand from the U.S. and Southeast Asian nations. In fact, it's become so popular that it's being enjoyed as a snack. Our Lee-Young tells us more.
At this government-organized event in Seoul, a type of dried seaweed, laver, or kim, is being handed out to foreign tourists. They take a bite, and it's a thumbs up.
I eat it regularly because it tastes good. I like kimbap, but it even tastes good with noodles as well.
The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries says laver exports reached $300 million last year, up from $100 million in 2010, and the country shipped out the dried seaweed to 96 countries around the world.
Laver exports have recorded a high growth in spite of falling outbound shipments due to the global downturn.
The ministry says this is largely due to food producers developing a variety of flavors and textures to target the growing snack market in the U.S. and Southeast Asian countries. Even Starbucks back in 2014 started selling these laver snacks at stores both in Korea and the U.S. The global coffee house chain says it will expand sales of these snacks to other countries starting next month. Lee Ji-young, Business Daily.
Did you know there are more chicken joints in Korea than the number of McDonald's worldwide? While many Koreans have been jumping into the chicken business in hopes of hitting the jackpot, a recent study shows that the reality waiting can be a lot harsher. With more, here's our Kim Min-ji.
You can eat it fried, smothered in sauce, or with beer. We're talking about chicken, one of the most sought-after foods among Koreans. With the annual size of the country's chicken market reaching over $4 billion, more than 7,000 new chicken joints are springing up each year. But as fast as are opening their doors, so many are shutting down. Roughly 1 out of 3 chicken joints go out of business within 3 years of opening, especially when it comes to franchisees of big brand chicken companies.
We are struggling with sales since there are just too many. If you're thinking of getting into a franchise, I'd recommend you do sufficient research beforehand.
According to research from Korea Fair Trade Mediation Agency on 15 large chicken franchises in Korea, the franchisees logged an average $161,000 per year in sales as of 2014. While this may sound promising enough, restaurant owners say the costs involved are exorbitant. After paying setup costs like a franchise fee and a property deposit, plus other expenses that go into interior decoration, royalty fees, and advertising, franchisees are only left around with 35% of total sales. Subtract rent and labor costs from what's left, and operators say it's hard to keep afloat. The mediation agency advises potential investors to be more objective and base their decisions on solid data instead of relying on advertisements that can make business deals seem juicier than reality. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
There seems seems to be no roof on Korea's massive household debt these days, as it reached 1,200 trillion won, or roughly $1 trillion as of the end of 2015, the largest amount since 2002 when records were first compiled. Take a look.
On the back of a surge in home mortgages, Korea's household debt rose by $33 billion in the fourth quarter, marking the biggest quarterly gain on record. With this latest jump, there are now questions on whether Korea should cut borrowing costs further to stimulate growth or hold back to keep debt from swelling. In light of the fresh numbers, the Bank of Korea said the country's recent rise in household debt has actually helped economic recovery as it boosted real estate transactions and spending. The bank added it expects to see continued improvement in the quality of loans. There are also expectations that the growth of debt will slow down this year once the housing market loses some steam and tighter regulations on mortgages take effect. Still, economists are worried that the debt-driven recovery could backfire, producing more distressed loans and worse asset quality for financial institutions. Global credit ratings agency Fitch has also cautioned that rising household debt increases Korea's vulnerability to external economic shocks.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you, Professor.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so what are some of the main reasons behind the skyrocketing household debt?
Well, the low interest rate, which is a cheap borrowing cost, and in addition, serious deregulations in the housing market made people to borrow more money from banks to buy more houses.
Well, I think the fact that debt grew at a faster rate than income for Korean households is the big problem here, though.
Right. According to Bank of Korea's data, the last year's housing debt increasing rate was almost 11%.
11%.
On the other side, their income growth rate was only 2.7%, which is lower than 3%. So technically speaking, if we compare these two figures, households do not have enough money to pay back their debt. However, if we take a look at this problem in different angle, there are different ways to pay back their debt by selling their houses. So as far as the housing prices are maintained, there's no problems of paying back the debt from the households.
Then what kind of measures have regulators put out in order to keep this ever-rising household debt under control or keep from growing?
Well, Korean government is using two policy tools, LTVs and DTIs. So Korean government has been really successful in controlling the housing market prices by using these two tools from the early 2000s. So they will keep on using these two policy tools to stabilize the house debt problem.
You talked about selling houses a little bit before, but Korea's household debt seems to have surged despite the relatively slow growth in prices of homes compared to other OECD member nations. Can you tell us what happened here?
Well, the reason for that is actually Korean government has been really successfully intervened the housing market when there was a pressure for higher housing prices. So that was very successful. So if we compare the relation between housing prices and household debt in the last 10 years or 15 years, it looks there's no relation. However, if you narrow down the relation in the last 2 years, time horizons from 2014, there is very high correlation between housing price and household debt.
All right, and I know that back in the report that we just saw, the Bank of Korea said that the surge in household debt is actually helping the economic recovery in the country. But I think the reason why a lot of people are still worried here is that this might trigger a financial crisis like it did back in 2008.
Well, according to current situation of the Korean financial market, it doesn't look that there is another financial risk or possibilities. Korean commercial banks are really well prepared about that risk. They have been secured their mortgage loans against enough collaterals.
All right, then I know they're well prepared, like you said, but what are some of the biggest threats from both in and outside of Korea that are going to, or that are might going to affect the Korean economy?
Well, we
or
can,
the household debt?
Yes, we can maybe think of the two risk factors, the higher interest rate from the United States. When U.S. Federal Reserve increased the interest rate, Korean interest rate almost automatically increases. So that gives out more burden to households who are sitting under household debt. Secondly, there is a possibility of the declining housing prices. If that really happens, that really hurts the systematic situation of the banking industry.
Now, there's a lot of talk over whether the Bank of Korea should further cut the key interest rates. So can you tell us what kind of impact will lowering or not lowering the key rate will have on the household debt?
Well, one of the major reasons why Bank of Korea is not increasing the key interest rate is for avoiding the problems related to house mortgage market. So Bank of Korea is actually squeezed between increasing rate and decreasing rate. So that should be determined in the near future for stabilizing mortgage markets.
So I guess the Bank of Korea will have to make a decision sometime sooner or later, right?
That's true.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that will do it for now, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you, so don't forget to check back with us then. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.